Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 9 of the Yes to Fitness podcast, the podcast for winners looking to better themselves through fitness. Now, today's podcast is on a subject which was highly recommended through my socials when I put out polls on what you would like to hear on this podcast. And today's episode is all on first-timers bikini competing. Now, if you are listening to this podcast and you are looking to compete for your first time and not be in the bikini category, I would still highly recommend taking a listen. There'll be a lot of useful information which is across the board throughout this podcast that will help you with your first timer show and experiences from first timer competing. However, I have 3 special guests on the podcast today, 3 very experienced, successful bikini athletes, and I'm excited to bring them onto this podcast, share their thoughts with you, their experiences, and help you to reflect back during your prep on this podcast and understand that even the most successful athletes will go through the same emotions you are probably feeling at the time during your prep. So for this podcast, I'm going to touch on a few points of which I think may help you decide if competing is for you. And if you do decide it is for you, a couple of points that will help you for your prep, what to expect, how to manage expectations, and a couple of points that can help you to become your best during that time and enjoy the experience. So not only that, I have 3 very special guests, as explained, Alicia Gardner, Rosy Benbow, and Char Ellis, who are 3 very successful bikini athletes who have opened up and shared their experiences of their first time on stage and what could be expected from them, their points of view, what they found difficult for their prep, and also a couple of points to help you set your expectations and help you to relate to them for your prep so that you understand that some of the emotions you are going through happen to the best of us. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you will see that I jumped on a Zoom call with the 3 athletes at separate times, and you'll be able to see the discussion from our Zoom calls. However, if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, then just continue to listen, and you'll hear when I jump into a conversation with them athletes and their thoughts and tips on first timers competing for you guys. But before I do jump onto a conversation with these athletes, I'm just going to touch base on a couple of points that I think will help you to have a better understanding of the bikini class, what it is, and a couple of points to help you go about deciding if competing is for you, because it is a big step and it is extreme. Stepping on stage isn't for everybody. However, it does reap huge rewards, and you'll hear that from the way that the 3 athletes talk about their experiences and how it's helped them in their pursuit of their careers as well as their fitness journeys, and how much it's helped them grow as a person by stepping on stage and learning their new boundaries and understanding that they are capable of a lot more than they believed before they started a prep. So let's start. Bikini competing. What is it? Well, if you are listening to this podcast, you probably have an understanding of the bodybuilding competitive world, but if not, then bikini competing, it's a division of the female categories for a bodybuilding show, and there is a number of different federations that will put bikini competing shows on, and this can be all year round as well, so there is no certain time to compete in a show. If you wanted to prep for a winter, there would be time to do that and shows early on in the year, or if you wanted to prep in the summer, there would be shows later on in the year for you. Now, these different federations that put the shows on can have slightly different variations of views on what a bikini athlete should look like. However, the general consensus of bikini class for females is that it is the class with the least amount of muscle. But saying that, and we will get into this in the podcast, that is not to be confused with not having muscle and just dieting to become a bikini competitor. You know, the top end of the bikini competing, the girls have fantastic muscle mass, but as a general consensus for picking a class, the bikinis athletes tend to have the least amount of muscle mass. Now, if you wanted to understand what a bikini athlete looks like when they're on stage, there are thousands of bikini athletes across social media, or if you were to search a federation, for example, for the UK, if you were to search Two Bros or PCA Federation, you'll see great examples of definitions of what a bikini class is, and also some examples of bikini athletes. Now, you'll find that the bikini class can be split into height categories and also age categories as well. There will be normally a junior class for normally around under 23 years old, and there will be a master's class for over 35. Now, that can vary depending on what federation you're in. So it's always vital to reach out, speak to people, and understand the exact class rules and definitions for the federation that you are looking to compete in. Now, being judged in a bikini class doesn't just come down to your physique. You are also judged on your hairstyle, how your bikini goes with your look, how your tan is. So there are a number of aspects that the bikini class looks at, not just your actual physique. So it's important to understand them aspects as well. Make sure that your tan goes with your hair color, your bikini matches your look, etc. So there are a number of aspects to take into consideration with this. So it's always good, like I say, to reach out to experienced athletes, maybe understand from their point of view what would be good for you if they have a good understanding of the class, and don't just do this journey alone. Now, with a little bit more understanding, or maybe you already knew all of that, let's talk about 3 sort of key points before you start, before we jump into a quick discussion with Shah Ellis on her point of view from first time competing. So the 3 points I'm going to touch base on is, number 1, research. So there is a lot of research out there you can do, but there's also a lot of research that can get you quite lost and confused about competing. So for me, point 1 is to understand and not look too broadly about the whole aspect of bikini competing. Focus on your area. So if you are based in the UK and you're listening to this, search up UK-based federations and then go from there. So once you've searched the federation, you can maybe search it on YouTube. If you type it in, say for example, Two Bros, you can search Two Bros Bikini Competing on YouTube, and you'll be able to see a run through of a competitor on stage, what to expect, and you may even catch a name or two on there of which you could search on social media and take a look to see their journeys through their fitness career or hobby, and see if that sort of looks like the sort of lifestyle that you would like to live. And then you could even reach out to them to ask them a couple of questions of where to start. So again, don't go too broad on research. There is a lot of American research where there are a lot of costs thrown about, which is another point that we are going to touch on, that might scare you away, which aren't necessarily true. So take a look for yourself. Do a little bit of research based locally to you. If there's anyone in your gym that's a bikini athlete, maybe reach out and talk to them to help you understand the class and feel a little bit more comfortable before you start, because without guidance, it can be quite daunting. Now, I'm probably going to refer back to social media quite a lot, but I do feel it is valuable for learning about the processes and gives you a lot of availability to learn about previous athletes that have stepped on stage, that could guide you towards every sort of aspect, from their emotions to where they got their bikini from to what category they think you should be in. all them sort of aspects. So I do feel that social media can be a really useful tool for first timer competing, because there's a lot of people that will be willing to give you information and support on where to go if you have got any questions. But I think once you've done that and you've done a little bit of research and actually you're thinking maybe this could be for me, what I would do, and point number 2 from me, would be to establish your why of why you want to step on stage. Now, this could be a number of reasons, and there is no right or wrong to this question of establishing your why. Now, that why can be a range of things, from you are wanting to become a bikini competitor to strengthen maybe your online coaching brand, to give you a better understanding for your clients that maybe want to do it. It could be because you want to start a weight loss journey and you really want a goal at the end of it that you can work towards and be proud of. Now, it could also be just for fun. You could be doing this for the enjoyment of this prep. Now, none of them are wrong. However, it's always good to establish why you want to step on stage, because times will get tough during a prep. There is no doubt about it that this is extreme sport where you do push your body to limits where it doesn't really want to be. So it's always good to establish the why of what you're doing it, to reflect on when them times get tough. And having that why there will definitely strengthen your purpose of what you are doing and help you to work towards that final goal of stepping on stage when them times do get tough. And they will. I think there's no doubt about it. If your prep doesn't get tough, then you probably haven't prepped hard enough. And I think you'll hear that point from all 3 of the guests that I have on this podcast. So just point number 3, which kind of stems off of that, is that be prepared to experience a lot of emotions. Now, again, this is taking your body to probably the furthest it's ever been, the most extreme you've ever pushed yourself. So along with that will be a mix of emotions. Now, don't get me wrong, everyone's emotions will be different at different points, and they are not all negative emotions. This process should be reflected on and be enjoyable. So if training and pushing yourself to new limits is something you enjoy, you're probably going to enjoy a contest prep. But not every point of that will be enjoyable. You will get up some days low on energy, feeling tired, and still have to push through the cardio and the training to get to your goal, even when you don't want to. But that's where self-discipline and preparation can come in to support, to help you push through. So I think now would be a great point to get my first guest on to the podcast, and that is with Char Ellis, who stepped on stage for the first time in 2020 during the pandemic, and had fantastic results in her first show. It wasn't a first timers category. Shah done a 2-row show, and absolutely smashed it. Walked away with medals galore in all of her categories. So I'm going to jump on to a Zoom call with Shah and just ask a couple of questions for her to share her experience of first time competing, as it's quite fresh in her mind, the freshest of the 3 athletes I've had on this podcast. So yeah, let's jump on and chat with Shah. As you can see, I've got Shah joining me for part of this podcast. So Shah Ellis was competing for her first time show last year. Done a 2-row show for her first show. Absolutely smashed it. Ended up doing a couple more shows after that last year. So I wanted to get Shah on just to talk about her experience running up to the show, what you could expect from a first timer, because Shah was in this place last year, but now she's so confident, smashing it with other clients that are doing first timer shows. So she's got a really good understanding of leading up to the show and what happens slightly after. So yeah, I'm just going to let Shah jump in, talk about her experience, and give you guys a bit more of an understanding.
Yeah, so as a first timer, you're obviously going to be filled with sort of it's just that unknowing. You don't know what to expect. And obviously you can relate to this as well, Ash. It's just like people will go through normal diets, but it's not to that extreme, and it's not at that level, and it's not that committed. Like when you get to prep, it is just like very all or nothing. Like for me personally anyway, and most people, that is all that matters to you, and everything else kind of just like fits in around it kind of thing.
If
And
it does, yeah.
it's a bit of a balancing act, working and prepping, because it's very time consuming, a lot of it. So yeah, you have those initial nerves of sort of the unknown, and self-doubt, which is normal. Can I do this? Am I gonna sort of make an impact that I want to make sort of on stage? Yeah, it's a funny one, because you obviously have sort of that kind of confidence in yourself, otherwise you wouldn't do it. But I think that those nerves are totally normal to experience, and it's just a lot of self-doubt. It's a big mental game, I think, prep, more so than a physical thing, because you just are constantly kind of going against that. You're sort of constantly pushing back, like, I will do this, I will do that. Like more towards the end of prep, if you're like more tired and more hungry, which is obviously inevitable, you are just pushing against those, pushing back, like, I will do it, I'm gonna do it. And it's just, that's what I love so much about it, is that challenge, that daily challenge. And I think the best thing to do when it gets hard at those times is just to look at the 24 hours that are in front of you and just tick those boxes, and deal with that 24 hours as it comes, rather than like, oh, I've got 4 more weeks of this or whatever. Just do what's necessary in that time frame. That's something that helped me a lot in my prep, I found.
Exactly, and that, yeah, you. I think self-doubt's one that I'll touch base on during this, but even you, who went on and smashed your show, to such a good extent, walked away with medals galore, still had self-doubt going into that show. So I think it's just
100%.
it's important to talk about. You're going to have self-doubt, no matter probably how good you look. The self-doubt,
Definitely. And I relate this to my clients quite a lot, and or talk about this with them to it. And I see self-doubt as a good thing, because you expect so much of yourself, and you're sort of challenging, you're sort of asking yourself, am I going to be good enough? And I kind of see it as a good thing, because it pushes you to be more and to be better. Because if you just are like, yeah, like, I feel good, you might not put 100% into that cardio, or 100% into that training session, or 100% adherence to your diet. And whereas if you're kind of kept on your toes with that self-doubt and that, am I going to be good enough, questioning yourself, it just keeps you pushing to be the best that you can be. Whereas, like I said, you might not push so much if you think, I look awesome, I look good, I'm going to smash this.
That's it, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like, and it's good to have a community around you that support you and let you know when you are feeling self-doubt how good you look. Like the little comments, sometimes you still think, no, I don't, but the comments to hear just keep you going.
Yeah, 100%. That's one thing, like, that I was really surprised by, is how much support you receive from people that you may not have even met. Like, sometimes more so than people that you know and are actually in your life. Because as well, like, as a first timer, trying to get your family and your friends to kind of get behind this thing is quite hard sometimes. I know my mum kind of found it a bit hard to understand why I was doing it, and why, because more towards the end it kind of does end up a bit like, this doesn't look like health and fitness, like towards the end when you are slogging away and you're tired all the time. So I just always bring that back to, I'm challenging myself kind of thing. If you're struggling with getting people to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, and getting them to support you, just try and explain it as a challenge, like when people run a marathon, like that essentially is kind of like abuse on the body, isn't it? But
Exactly.
it's it's a challenge and something to work towards.
And I always, when I thought that, I always related to, you know, I'm not the only one doing this. Everyone else who's about to step on stage is also going through that same motions and same feelings.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So, Shah, what did you sort of expect after the show? Just so when you've done your first time a show, obviously you don't know what to expect from it or how to feel after. So can you touch a little bit on sort of the emotions you had afterwards and what people could sort of expect, or just what you expected or actually felt?
Yeah, so I obviously was very happy and was on cloud nine, and it honestly, the whole day like just felt like a right blur. It took a long time to sort of sink in, because it obviously you're prepping for a long time, and then it all is so set on that one day, and that day comes around, and then it's over, and it's like, oh whoa, like everything that my focus and drive has been towards is been and gone now.
Yeah.
Which is difficult if you don't have a show sort of set after that. So I did have another show 4 or 6 weeks maybe between. I had a gap, but after that second show it was a bit like, now what? But yeah, the initial after the first show was like that, just super happy like with the result that I had achieved.
Yeah.
And I was just wanted to carry on for more. Like I went in on the food. Probably that's the rule, isn't it? Like you have to, you don't have to. But yeah, I just enjoyed myself. Had that evening off. I went out for a nice meal with my dad, which was really nice because I hadn't seen him. He was able to come to the show, and I hadn't seen him all of lockdown because I don't live with my dad, so that was the first time I'd seen him in so long. So it was really, really awesome actually. Went for a meal, so yeah, I spent time with my family, and then just kind of got cracking and plugging away again for the next show. But yeah, initial emotions, it is, like I said, it's funny because the day has passed. It's like it's normal to feel a little bit lost and a bit like, now what? So I just put my all into so obviously, so I said I had a gap between the first and second show, but after the second show, when it's like, it's over, my season is over, I just put my all into training to bring back. I knew I wanted to compete obviously the following season. My goal then was to just put everything into that training and make sure everything had 100%, and that was the goal, rather than it being the show day goal. So it was like just making improvements on my training. So awesome. It's good to set like a new like mini goal kind of thing.
I think that's a good point. And then in the gym, I don't know how you found it last couple of weeks before your actual show. In the gym for me is tough. Like the sessions aren't the same. Like you don't enjoy the gym the same way you do 8 to 10 weeks out, say. So it's always good after the show, that after week when you've got a bit more food and a bit more energy, you get back in and you just fall in love with the process of just training again. So if you do that straight away, it brings back some sort of why am I doing this and why, because you love training. The last couple of weeks really super hard in the gym, like what am I actually doing? And then when you get afterwards, you fall back into that rhythm. And if you set yourself like a mini goal, not something stupidly far away, like a goal of, I'm going to make sure I control what I eat so I don't blow up or whatever, then you'll probably fall into a process again. So
100%. It's just about, like you said, creating a mini goal that is not so far away, something feasible. Mine was pretty kind of broad in the sense that it was just progress all my lifts as much as possible, 100% effort. So it wasn't super specific. It was just, I want to absolutely smash my life up in the gym.
But you probably achieved that as well, though. I'm sure you did.
Yeah, the rebound was good. Like all of that food went to good use, trust me. But yeah, going back to those sort of last few weeks before the show, I felt like absolute death at 3 weeks out. There was a heat wave in the UK, and I felt like a bit of wet lettuce. And there were honestly times when, looking back now, it seems super dramatic, but I actually cried on the hack squat because I couldn't do the weight that I had done the previous week. And I just felt like a limp bit of lettuce in that heat. Like, if you think normally when you're hot, you do obviously experience heat exhaustion and dehydration. So when your body is under the extreme pressure of a prep as well, it's like 10 times worse. So training in that was just a nightmare. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen again at 3 weeks out, because I can't deal. And it seems so dramatic, like crying about it, like what, when you look back at it, like you just gotta laugh. But at the moment, in the time, it's like, this is all that matters and I can't do it. Like, why can't I do it?
That's what I just wanted to bring sort of people like you on the podcast, because if you went through these emotions, it's okay for everyone else to go through it. You know, like you see sometimes and you think someone's like super regimented, super robotic about how they do their prep, which you are to an extent, but these emotions and the self-doubt do kick in no matter sort of who you are.
100%. Like, I knew that I had a good physique and that I was going to bring something that really good to the stage. Like, that's not me blowing my own trumpet, but I knew that I just have good proportions and I'd worked hard. But those doubts and things are 100% normal, and I think everyone experiences it. I think it'd be weird if I didn't. If anyone didn't. I think it would just be weird, wouldn't it, if you didn't doubt yourself? I don't know. Like, I think it's normal.
And that's what I just wanted to normalize, rather than, you know, say that it's an easy process or anything like that. You know, so rather than jump on this podcast and trying to get everyone to compete, it's someone jumping on it and understanding what they are expected to go through, but understand it's normal. So yeah, no, thanks for that.
Totally. No worries.
Thanks for your time and joining.
No worries. Again, I've enjoyed it.
Check out Shah. What is your Instagram? Just drop that out there quick.
Yeah, it's Shah Ellis.
Perfect. So if you want to speak to Shah, drop her a message. I'm sure she'll be happy to answer.
Of course.
And we shall catch up with you soon.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye.
So thanks very much to Shah for joining on this podcast. But you can tell from talking to Shah there that she absolutely loved the experience. But she went into prep loving training and had her why established, which, you know, reflecting on the points we've spoken about before, is one thing I would definitely take into competing before you decide to do it. So while we have a quick break from our second athlete on the podcast, let's just touch base on a couple of more points, of which the two I'm going to cover are to know there's a cost to competing, and then also the suggestion of doing a run through before you decide to take the leap and enter a show and set a time frame for your prep. So point number one is something I touched base on a little bit earlier, and that's to know there is a cost to competing. Now, there are a huge range of costs depending on who you speak to. And for me, if you jump onto Google and you were to search what is the cost of bikini competing, there is a vast range in opinions, some of which range up to 6,000-7,000. Sometimes that's in dollars, which can put you off straight away. Now, the costs for me are not that high. They're not in them regions. However, there is a certain cost to it. So it's always good to do a breakdown of what the costs are. Now, to do that, write it down on paper and write a list of everything that will incur a cost for your show. So if you were to decide to do a show in the UK, understand that you'll probably have to travel to the show and stay overnight. So there'll be travel and accommodation costs, as well as the costs for the federation entering the show. The tan, the bikini, the heels are sort of fixed costs that you're going to have. And then there are a few variables, you know, whether you want to break it down into the cost of the foods and the supplements that you'll use. Supplements, I use that term broadly, and I don't want that term to get confused with the way supplements are viewed. Supplements can be from vitamins to your protein powder to intra-workout, but certain coaches or certain people will recommend other supplements, and the list can be quite small, or some coaches can list quite a large list of supplements they would like you to use. So there's a variable there. And another variable is whether you decide or not to hire a coach for your competition. Now, no one says you have to hire a coach for your competition, but what I would recommend is that if you are entering a show and there are a number of variables you really are not sure on, whether that be posing, whether that be routine, whether that be how to actually diet, then you might want to consider it, because if you're struggling with these aspects, then the prep is going to be very difficult. To make the prep as easy as possible and be prepared as possible, you want to take the most amount of factors away from you that you have to decide as possible. So if you hire a coach and you're told who to go to pose, you're told what to eat, you're told what cardio to do, you're told what training session to do, then these numbers or these factors are going to be taken away from you, and you're literally just going to have to do a tick box exercise in that 24-hour period to achieve your goals of that prep. Now, if you're setting your own standards of what to train, what to eat, what you look like in the mirror, then you're adding certain variables which can be quite tough on yourself. Now, the next guest I'm going to speak to is Alicia Gardner, who is now an IFBB pro, but she actually prepped herself for the first show. So no one is saying you have to get a coach, but it would be highly recommended if you have a number of variables which you are not sure on going into a prep. So that's another variable cost. There is different prices of different coaches out there, ranging from £100 a month upwards, I would say. That is a low-end cost. Now, to decide a coach, it is purely down to you and your preferences. There is no right or wrong coach as such. It's the one that's going to get you the best results because you have the best relationship with, as well as their experience obviously is a huge factor. So don't just jump at the first coach that you see on social media or the first one that is recommended to you. Make sure you speak to a couple beforehand and make a decision from there who would be the right coach for you. Look at their results, engage with them, see if you like the way they talk, possibly speak to a couple of their current clients for their methods, see if that's something that will work for you, and don't rush into that decision. But that sort of leads into my second point, and that is to do a run through, which can be done by yourself. You don't need a coach for this necessarily. Now, when I say a run through, set yourself a shorter time frame, maybe that be 6 weeks, maybe 8, where you start a diet or a short competition prep with no goal at the end, but the pure fact of that you want to see if you can put your body through them limits and you can adhere to a diet for that time frame successfully. So if you can put yourself on a diet which you write yourself, whether you write it or a coach, and adhere to that diet each day, do the cardio each day, train each day, and don't miss any aspect of that side of things, then you're probably ready to do a competition prep. However, if you put yourself on a 6-week diet and you find in 2 weeks in you're eating off track, you've missed 3 cardio sessions out of the 2 weeks, and you've missed a couple of training sessions, then you might want to take a step back and reflect on your preparation for a show. And maybe there's a couple of things that you need to tweak before you decide that competing is for you. Now, that might just be preparation, that you just need to get better organized. But it might be the fact that your lifestyle just doesn't allow you to get on stage because it's too hectic, and the stress of this added pressure of having to prep and nail every variable isn't going to work for you. So there's no right or wrong time to compete. It's just that doing a run through for a short period of time without a goal at the end may help you to decide whether you're ready to or not, without you stepping into a competition prep and setting a goal there and outlaying the costs to end up with disappointment. So it's not a criticism, it's just saying that it might be good to do a run through where you put yourself through that position without the added costs and pressure of a show. So you could even extend that to and possibly do a photo shoot prep, which is a similar experience, but again, it's not got that added pressure of stepping on stage at the end of it. So let's jump in now and let's have a chat with Alicia Gardner, who took her time out on her daily walk to jump on a Zoom call with me and just share experience going back to her first show many years ago, where she prepped herself but fell in love with the process and is now a very successful IFBB pro who has a great career ahead of her, and she's a great inspiration for me. I've known Alicia for years and watched her from the start of her journey. So let's jump in. Let's have a chat with Alicia. So as you can see, I've managed to catch up with Alicia Gardner, who is a Bikini IFBB pro. I've followed Alicia from her first time she stepped on stage. So I wanted to grab her quickly, if we could, just grab a couple of words, bits of advice, and see if she can remember what her first show was like. So we managed to catch her on her daily walk. She's getting her steps in. But yeah, I'm just going to hand over to Alicia and just ask sort of if you can remember that feeling you had leading up to your first show, what sort of emotions you can expect to go through, and why you've pursued carrying on all these years competing and to get to where you are now.
Yeah, sure. So hi guys. Wow, where do I even start? So his first show was absolutely an incredible and, well, yeah, life-changing experience for me, because obviously I'm still competing now. So yeah, I was hooked from day one. So I first competed in 2016. At the time, I competed in the UK BFF division, which was at the time how you earned your the route to earning your IFBB Pro card. So I prepped myself. It was a completely different, like completely new experience. I have been training for ages. I just kind of wanted an additional goal to kind of like work towards. And I think because I'd always been into competitive sport, I kind of needed that kind of competitive edge. So yeah, I went to my first show. I mean, it was a whole experience in itself, in the fact that it was completely new, like dieting. I'd never ever dieted before, to anything like, I don't know, I'd always eaten well, but kind of like dieting was just something that was obviously really strict. And I was nervous. I was so nervous. I think I kept my training the same and everything, but obviously because I prepped myself, it was the complete fear of the unknown. I had no idea what I was actually doing. I knew how to get lean and I knew how to train, but in terms of the competing ball game, like, whoa, completely different. But I think ultimately, in terms of just going into your first show, just give it 110%, just because the best feeling is when you step on stage knowing that you literally could not have given it any more. Like, you've left absolutely no stone unturned whatsoever. And I think apart from that, having that feeling, then you can completely go into it and just enjoy it. Like, enjoy the process, enjoy the day. When those training sessions absolutely suck because you're, depleted and you're tired and all you want to do is like take a nap, just like remember your why, remember why you're doing this, and just remember that when you step on stage, you're like, I push through. Like, regardless of whether you continue to compete afterwards or you never ever want to do that again, it's an incredible experience, and you will learn so much about yourself and your own mental resilience and like how far you can push yourself, just by kind of going into that first show with like 110% kind of mindset. So yeah, and then in terms of like show day, like I just mentioned, just enjoy it. Honestly, you've worked so hard for it.
Yeah.
Enjoy it. Enjoy the process. Everyone you will meet on show day is so lovely. Like the athletes that you're technically competing against, it's honestly such a nice experience backstage, which is actually something that I didn't anticipate. Like I didn't necessarily expect, because you know it's a competition at the end of the day, but it's such positive vibes back there. Like I absolutely love it, and everyone's always so helpful and shares food post show, and like normally you'd never catch me sharing my food. Yet all of a sudden, when you're starving and depleted and like your leanest self, you're like, yeah, have some of my food. It makes no sense, but it's really, really, really nice. So that was kind of like my feelings in terms of going into my first show. The reason why I've competed ever since, my first show 2016, I then competed again in 2018, and then took quite a long break before going for my pro card again. But I've just kept competing because I love the process. I love pushing myself, like whether that's in fitness or career or just like everyday life. I always have to have a goal. Like that's just me. And I've always loved the gym as well. So it's just been like a natural progression. It was just something that I really enjoyed doing. I learned so much about myself, and honestly, every single prep that I do, I just learn more and more about me, like my mental resilience, my body, everything. And I love learning as well. So, and I just feel like with this sport, you can never know enough until you like continue to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's awesome. So what sort of emotions did you go through on your first prep? Were you like nervous? Did you have any self-doubt or?
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, I was so nervous. I remember so vividly being on stage on my first show, actually shaking. Like you could actually see me shaking from the audience. That's how nervous I was. And I think I was nervous, obviously, never ever done anything like this before. And I was never used to being in front of like large audiences. Like I'd never even really, by that time, I was beginning of uni. So I'd never even really done any form of like public speaking or like anything like that in front of large crowds. So I'd never been in front of a large crowd, let alone in front of a large crowd, semi-clad in sparkly bikini, you know? Like, so of course I was shaking. So yeah, I was so nervous. But honestly, the moment I stepped off stage, I was absolutely buzzing. It was like Christmas, Easter, birthdays, New Year, everything like rolled into one. I was just so excited about the fact that I just did that. It was literally such an exhilarating experience. Like, but yeah, of course I was nervous. I think like that's just very, very natural feeling. But yeah, just know that once you kind of get past the nerves and you kind of like can sink into it and enjoy it, and the longer I was on stage, the better I kind of felt. And then by the time it got to my individual walk after the comparisons, at the time, that's how they did it. Like it was fine. And I think, yeah, of course, like in terms of self-doubt, like again, everyone kind of gets those feelings, but I think as long as you're prepping and you're competing and you're doing it for like the right reasons and you're doing it for you, then the placings and all of that, you know, you can focus on placing and your IFB pro card or whatever goal it is that you want to achieve. Like once you've got over the hurdle of the initial your first show is about the experience, the prep, like just getting a feel for is this what you actually want to do. And then you can focus on like the placings and your pro cards and all of that. So especially for something like your first prep, like, well, for all preps really, but especially for your first prep, like don't let self-doubt get in the way, because this is fun. Like it's so fun. So yeah, just enjoy it. Literally just enjoy it.
No, it's good. I just wanted to grab like an honest opinion and understand that, you know, you are an IFBB pro, but you've still gone through them emotions of self-doubt leading up to shows, etc. So it's just good that is a normal feeling, and for people to understand going into a show that you can expect to feel that, and that is so
100%. And I think like especially when you have a coach you kind of give them the reins. So, you know, whilst you may be feeling a bit of self-doubt or whatever, just know that if you're following your plan to a T and what your coach is telling you, etc., then there is no reason to doubt yourself. Like, as long as you have 110% trust in your coach, then you have no reason to doubt them yourself, and you're going to be absolutely just fine. And in a sense, like, you have so much to concentrate on in prep with everything, and just hitting your meals and your cardio and your training, whatever. Like, you do not need like self-doubt to kind of like deal with that as well. I think honestly, just get that tunnel vision going, and anything that, if you envision it kind of like horse like flat things when they're racing, and anything that kind of like bounces off that, just deflect it. Like, it's just not worth your time. Like, you have enough to concentrate on, like when your next bowl of oats is.
And that still continues to the day. Every day.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, every day, multiple times.
Brilliant. So honestly, thank you so much, Alicia, for just giving us a few sort of hints. And what is your Instagram, if anyone wants to find you, if they can drop you a message, ask you a question?
Yeah, sure. Feel free to literally drop me a message anytime. Always happy to chat to everyone about competing and food and training, dieting, whatever. My Instagram handle is literally just my name. It is at Alicia Gardner.
And I'll put that in the bio. So thanks for joining me, Alicia. So again, just a great thank you to Alicia for taking her time to jump on this podcast with me and share her thoughts. So let's just touch base on a couple more points solo with just me for the minute on what to do to prepare. So as you can sort of tell from the theme of this podcast, there is a lot of preparation that goes into it, and preparation can help you definitely have a better starting point before you step on stage. So, you know, talking to the two athletes so far, it's not just about being on stage. This is about the whole journey and enjoying the process. So this whole stepping on stage thought starts from the moment you decide that you want to step on stage. Now, enjoy the whole process, and by doing that, you need to be prepared of what to expect, and not go into show day with any doubts that you could have done more or been better prepared, or not know what to do when you step on stage. So one big point is that practicing posing is a huge part of competing. If you have the best physique on stage, but you cannot portray that physique through the poses and the transitions, you're not going to achieve the results that you want, which is basically to win. That's pretty much why we all enter a competition, is that we want to be our best, we want to be the best. It's not the only reason, and I'm saying if you don't win, you shouldn't be disappointed as long as you've brought your best to the stage. So again, with every aspect of being prepared, of food and being prepared in the gym with everything you need, whether it be the supplements you take to the mindset that you take in to the gym with you, posing is also a huge factor. So being confident with the posing happens from starting the posing very far out of the show. You know, when you start a prep is where you should start posing, if not before. It is very difficult, and from personal experience, yes, I'm not a bikini athlete, but the posing is a lot more difficult when you're not happy with your body shape, or to put it bluntly, you know, you're carrying the extra weight that's not stage look. Now, when you compare yourself posing to people that are posing on stage, which is what you end up doing, you do or can feel quite awful because you haven't got that lean aesthetic look. Now, that's just a heads up, but it doesn't mean you should not pose when you're feeling like that. The better you can prepare from posing many, many weeks out, it's only going to get better as you get leaner, and you're going to get more confident as you get leaner. However, if you leave it until you're confident with your body, it will be way, way, way too late. That's because You assess yourself every day, and during prep, you just want to improve and improve and improve. And you'll just keep putting off wanting to practice posing because you think you'll look better next week, and you think you'll be lean enough to pose next week. Next week rolls around, and you think, oh, I'm just going to start posing once I'm a little bit leaner again, and you'll just keep putting it off. So there are a number of ways of practicing posing. If you have no clue where to start, then hiring a posing coach will be a great starting point. Now, there are different ways of doing it. You can do Zoom calls online, you could do face-to-face posing, or maybe your coach that you've hired has experience in posing. It might not be the best, but they can start you off with the foundations. Or there are things such as sort of posing portals now, which is like a subscription where you can jump on and check out the poses and the transitions at a lower cost. So that would be a big recommendation for me, is be prepared with the posing. And be prepared in general, whether that be meal prep, knowing up front what your daily schedule looks like, so that if you need to do faster cardio, get up earlier to fit your cardio in your busy day, then you're up and prepared for that rather than leaving it till it's too late. Preparation is just vital throughout the whole of prep, in my opinion. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump in with Rosy Benbow now, who is a successful bikini athlete herself, but is also quite an experienced coach. So what I wanted to ask Rosy was if she has the same feelings or emotions as questions that she gets from her current clients, as in, did she ask her coach the same questions that she gets asked now, and see if there's a sort of a common theme that you could identify to answer these questions for you, so that if they are in your mind when you go into a prep, that you're able to relate back to this podcast and understand that it's a normal emotion for a competition prep. So yeah, let's jump in with Rosy and get her great opinion of first timers competing and her views as a coach. So again, for this podcast, I now have Rosy joining me, who is a coach for Team LRF, a very experienced bikini athlete as well, but also has a lot of experience in coaching and is coaching a lot of bikini athletes for this year. So for this side of things, what I thought I would do is grab Rosy onto the podcast just to speak about if she's got any questions that she used to ask when her coach, when she was competing or still is competing, that match the sort of questions that she gets asked by her clients, to see if it's sort of a common theme, if there's any common questions. So yeah, going to hand over to Rosy and let us know what you think.
Cool. Firstly, thanks for having me on. Yeah, I suppose one that gets asked quite a lot, and it's definitely one that I asked as well, is, am I going to be ready in time? It was a bit different. So when my first year, really, my coach then, we didn't really do weekly check-ins. So I was kind of just praying that I was going to be ready. Oh. I had no idea what you needed to look like to be ready, or like how I would know, but I was ready. And but since then, obviously, you have a weekly check-in. Like all my clients will do 2 weekly check-ins as well.
Yeah.
And any concerns that they have, I will call them about anything as well. And I think also people, when they start prep, they think that they'll be show lean in like a week or two.
Yeah.
And the thing you need to remember is the only day that you need to be stage lean and stage ready is show day. If you peak too early, then you've gone wrong, or if you peak too late or anything like that, it's gone wrong. So I think really, like, with that, I'd just say, just follow everything that your coach says, but also tell them how you're feeling as well throughout the process, because it's a big thing. Like a coach, they might need to pull your cardio for a bit, and that will bring your weight down or something like that. And it might be, if you don't tell them that you're really tired, or lifts are not progressing anymore, something like that, they just don't know what, if there's anything going on. I mean, we obviously, as coaches, we look at your videos and we can see kind of in your physique what will need doing.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately it's telling your coach everything and then trusting in your coach, because you've gone to that coach for a reason. So as long as you follow what they say, then you will be ready in time.
That's it. They have a judgment on your look for when you need to start prep as well. And like you say, for you, is there a thing of peaking too early, or is it like you're happy to run into show day and then peak on that exact day, or is it like you expect clients to be ready a week out, or?
Yeah, so for myself and for clients generally, you need them ready about a good probably 2 weeks out, a week, just because you want to lower the cardio and things like that, like, because obviously cardio does bring inflammation into your body.
Yeah.
So you want to get rid of all that. Generally your last kind of legs weight session is about a week before the show.
Yeah.
And then upper body probably would be about midweek. Then you'll stop that. Whereas my very first show, I think I did cardio right up until the day before the show. Well, yeah, I mean, that's what I was told to do.
Get the last little bit out of you.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely, and then it means that you can be fed into the show. Your body looks a lot more rested. Mentally, you feel a lot better as well, because you can feel a bit haggard by the end of prep, and I think that really helps, and it's much more relaxing. You have more time to practice your posing as well. That's another thing, actually, I think with first timers particularly is posing.
Yeah,
it's something that I make a big deal of with my clients when they check in, is to correct it all and say, you need to go for classes and stuff, because I think it's very easy to forget that, yes, a class can be won or lost on your physique, but it can also be won or lost on your posing, because if you have a beautiful physique and you don't display it, judges can only judge what they see. So they don't know that you've got the most killer lat spread if you don't spread properly on stage. They don't know. So I think making sure that your coach is looking at every aspect of what you're doing as well with it, because that's what show prep is all encompassing, really. It's making sure that your sleep is on point, your digestion is on point, not just the way that you look and you're coming in lean, but also that you're mentally like feeling ready for it as well.
Which I think the point of being 2 weeks out is really important, because like you say, you do not want to feel like you're not ready 5 days before your show. So feel better.
Yeah. And it's like your body, it's amazing. It does change an awful lot in peak week, don't get me wrong. Like, it really, every morning you wake up and you're like, whoa, I look different. But don't think that you're gonna lose 6 pounds or something when you're a tiny bikini girl in your last week. Like, it's better to kind of pull back and wait for another show. Like, I've never had to do that, but it's just, I think there is no point in ever going on stage, and I don't think a coach would let you unless you really do look your best. Yeah, that's what I'd say.
Yeah, exactly. we touched base on that, didn't we? I think during the podcast where I jumped on your podcast.
Yeah.
Was about, you say, like, peak week, your body really does change, and you see changes so much over like every 24 hours during that week. So yeah, you still will changes, but you still want to feel ready the week before. Like, you could step on stage and be okay, but you will still see changes. But yeah, I mean, just before we started recording this, obviously we talked about weight, we talked about stage weight, we talked about food, etc. And we had a little conversation. But I think it's important, just for a first timer like a bikini, especially if she sort of hasn't really dieted massively hard before, but it's something they want to do, step on stage, is talking about how low sometimes food could get, or how high cardio can sometimes get, because I don't want people to jump into a competition and want to be a bikini girl and think bikini is a small look. Don't get us wrong, like, it's a small look, that food can go quite low and cardio can go quite high, purely because that's what a lot of the girls are doing now to achieve the look. Not everyone, and the more you do and the more years experience you get, I suppose that can change. But initially, like, for a first timer, it may be the case.
It definitely is, and you know, don't forget, a lot of first timers as well, they do lack often a bit of muscle, you know, like generally speaking. Obviously the pros, they look bigger because they do have more muscle mass. The more muscle mass that you have, the more, you know, calories that you just burn by just sitting there. So if you have less mass, yes, you generally do have to diet a bit harder, you do have to do a bit more cardio. I mean, I kind of just signed up for my first show and I just went for it. I didn't really know how long you needed to prep or anything, but it was good for me to not think about it, actually, to just kind of go, okay, I just want to do it. But yeah, I mean, I had an hour cardio on that. I think my food was probably was about 12,000 1200 calories, sorry. 12,000, imagine that.
That's what it's at now.
Looking like Eddie Hall or something, you know? But you know, like, bear in mind, I am very small. Like, I am only about 5'1", and although, you know, there's girls, when I stand in my exact height class, there's girls that probably weigh more or less than I do on stage, but you know, I've been right down at like 44 kilos, which is, I think it's about 100 pounds, maybe just under 100 pounds. You know, that's small, and so obviously I just don't need the calories when I'm that size either. But yeah, I've had about an hour and 20 minutes Stairmaster a day, you know, and then training on top of that. But I've also, you know, had better preps as well than that. And I think it's just, I've always just thought to myself, okay, if that's what I need to do to, like, if that's what is required of me to get in the stage condition, because stage condition is not like livable, you know, it's very unnatural for your body, and you really don't want to stay at that weight for very long. I mean, luckily, like, I would say that I am one of those fortunate people, I'd say, that I'm okay on low food and high cardio. I think, you know, I deal with it. I wouldn't say that I feel that rough, but I certainly know that some people, yes, they do. But then I wouldn't say that in the past I've ever really had that much food. So I think what I've had relative coming into a show, like, it was relative to what I had in off season, whereas what you really want, and what, you know, I would always do with my clients, is we push calories up as much as we can, you know, whilst maintaining a nice lean body fat, and you lower cardio as much as you can, so like just steps really. And then it gives you a lot more variables to play with when you come into a show, so that you don't end up on as low calories as I've been. And particularly, you know, with first timers, you want as much time as you can to add the lean mass and to be able to build up the calories as well, because, you know, for them it's a lot more of an enjoyable prep, because you have to look at it in the grand scheme of, like, show day is probably like 1% of what we do. Like, it's a brilliant day, but you know, the majority of what you're doing is day in, day out, is just grinding through your cardio, you know, your workouts, eating your set meals and stuff. If you hate that, and you hate the food, or you're dying every day, then, like, what's the point? You know, you've got to enjoy it. And I think that's the thing of, like, always telling your coach as well, like, you know, obviously when you get close to a show, you know, you can't have all these fancy foods as much, but you know, like, you know, I think saying to your coach as well, sometimes, you know, it's fine, like, you can swap out sometimes certain, you know, foods that are maybe a bit more calorie dense for something like potato. You can have a lot more volume of it for the calories and stuff like that. But it is kind of, like you said with bikini, we are the smallest class, like, in terms of muscularity, and it's a very fine line with bikini, because we are expected to have a nice body of muscle that gives shaping to your frame, you know, like, gives us that nice X frame, and we also need condition to show off the muscle, but not to the point where we should be seeing like deep cuts or striations in it. So there is a little rounding on a bikini girl, but you don't want to see anything moving either. And it's quite like a fine line. It's a hard, I think it's hard that.
There's a controversial opinion on it, isn't it? Some people, you know, you speak to can say, Yeah, bikini girls, all you got to do is diet and you'll get that shape. But it's very much not quite like that. You know, like you say, there's a lot to it when you want to compete and do well. So
yeah, there is. And also don't forget, like, when I say what food I'm on or whatever, don't forget the genetics have a part as well. I know that there's some girls who can eat crazy amounts of food. Like, I think for instance, one of the girls I coach her and her partner, and she's probably not far off the calories that he's on, and he's
she's loving it.
6'6". Yeah, she's great. That's wicked. So like her prep is going to be awesome.
Love that.
But it kind of, I guess, don't use what, like, me as a guideline for it. Everyone is individual, and
I think that was the point of sort of bringing it up, was because you are a successful athlete, but you are someone who has also grinded on the Stairmaster for over an hour a day and on 1200 calories. Doesn't necessarily mean that's the right way. It just means it may be what you end up having to do as an individual. Don't rule it out. Don't think that prep is something where you can have 2000 calories a day and do a little bit of cardio and you'll be able to do it. It might be the case, like you say, for the girl you coach, it could possibly be the case that she's eating quite high. But there is also the possibility that if you want to get in that best shape for the last however many weeks before you are out the show, you can go that low and you can be on cardio for that amount of time. So
I mean, I know bikini girls that have been on really good amounts of food, and they've probably only done steps as their cardio. But like I said to you earlier about, I remember reading about Jay Cutler, and he ate ridiculous amounts of food in his off season, because he had to get on that size. But then I definitely remember reading that his cardio was 2 hours, and you think you can't have any more muscle mass than that.
Yeah.
And he's still having to do that. His food was low. So it's just you're trying to push your body into a place that it doesn't want to be. And so you often do have to go past the point. Like, there is a bit when you're going to get a little bit tired and stuff, like but there is things that you can do to mitigate that as well. I think, like naps are a great thing.
Don't rule out
coffee. Coffee with like a little bit of sugar-free sweetener. It's good. Or it depends how your coach is doing it. I've done things like carb cycling. I've done I've done all different types of refeeds as well coming into a show. And it's interesting to try all these things. Like you said, there is no right or wrong. I think with it, as long as it's not dangerous, then I think you kind of just have to think, if I have to do 30 minutes like cardio whatever every day to get to that point, that's my goal, so I'll just do it. But I think also remembering that your coach is always looking out for your best interests as well. Like, they are looking out for your health as well. So I think just trusting your coach with it, really.
Yeah, I totally get that. And like you say, just last point I'm going to touch on was just, you were saying, you got to enjoy the process. Like, you have to, it's not like you say, you don't enjoy just stage day, you enjoy the process. And I think anyone who goes through a prep, when they reflect on it, enjoys the process. And that's why you do it again. But there is also points in that 12, 16 weeks, whatever it may be, that you do not enjoy it. Like, you do reflect back on it and you think, during that time, you're like, I don't want to do this cardio, I don't want to do this. But that's not enjoying it. It's just some days you feel worse than others, and you have a bigger why of wanting to step on the stage, so you get it done. But is that normal for you as well? Like, you
but I think also, like, I had one of my clients recently said, I'm really hungry today or something like that, and I thought, you're not on low food, but you have to think about it like this. If you're not on a plan, you naturally get days where you're hungrier, you're more full, you might be more tired or something like that, but you never think about it because you're not on a plan. So you're not really checking all these things or monitoring it so closely. So then you assume then that it's your diet because you know that you're in a deficit or anything like that. And that's often, it's just natural fluctuations with your body again. Like, so these days happen. I'd say I'm pretty good. I definitely find actually the start of a prep a little bit harder.
Wow.
I think once I'm going, I'm just so like in it that I don't really care. You can eat what you want in front of me, and I really don't care.
Yeah.
But yes, in a weird way, I love all the Stairmaster. I love all of it. I mean, I just look at stuff like, I just think, okay, that's time where I can learn something off YouTube, or you know, I can listen to something that I wouldn't normally do, and I'm getting to my goals while I'm doing that. And yeah, there's days when I'm hungry and I would like other foods and stuff, but then I do think that, you know, like part of getting on stage, like, we would be lying if we said that we don't want to win, because everyone who competes is competitive, and that's part of why we do it. But ultimately we are trying to be the best like version of us on stage, and you know, knowing that you've gone through all of that and you've stood on stage, because competing isn't for everyone. And you know, if it was that easy to get in that shape, then everyone in the world would walk around looking like they were, you know. So, and they, you know, they don't. So, and also, you know, that's horses for courses in a way. Like, you don't have to, dieting doesn't have to be your thing, or doing, you know, weight training doesn't have to be your thing. That's fine. There's loads of challenges in life that you can do. But for us, obviously, we kind of get a lot of the enjoyment out of it by the achievement of getting on stage, not the achievement of the medal. Although obviously that's what we want, but you know, and that's like an added bonus, I would say, of it. And I think also you learn, like, I wish I'd competed younger, because I learned so much more about myself and about my body, but also like what you know that you can go through. I think, you know, like, and you know, I've had girls that have come to me who have said, you know, my last prep before I worked with you, you know, I was on like, she was on asparagus and white fish, her carbs were 4 rice cakes, and she was on like ridiculous amount of Stairmaster, all this stuff, and she just did it. And I said, but like, how incredible that you pulled yourself through that, you just did it. And you know, what a strong woman you are now because of it. So yeah, now she's having a whale of a time.
It's an interesting point, because Alicia and Shah both said the same sort of point, not about competing at a younger age, but the fact that it sort of makes you more resilient. And I can totally 100% relate to that. Like, you learn a lot about yourself as a person from prep.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, it's an amazing process. I mean, not only the fact of like looking at your body all the time, it's fascinating. Like, I sometimes think I never knew that vein was there, or like, I mean, obviously it's always been there, but I just never saw it before. Or, you know, or how you realize that you're not symmetrical, that if you stand on one side you look different to the other. All these things are fascinating. But you know, it definitely is far more of a medal, I think, to know that you made it, and that you made it to the point that you wanted to get to. Like, you just dug in, whatever. And I think, you know, you've just got to think every day in prep, every day that you tick the boxes with making sure that you eat your food perfectly, you do your cardio perfectly, you train to the best of your ability. All of those things, they just add up to like your overall goal. So it might seem insignificant at the start, and like a little thing, you know, if you messed up with your food, but like, you have to look at it as the overall picture, that all those little things that you do, they add up to you, you know, looking your best and obviously winning.
That's brilliant. Thank you for that. Thank you for your time, Rosy. And I could keep talking, and I could keep talking. We keep this another time, but no, thank you for joining. And I know you're a busy lady. So yeah, I need to go to Tesco actually and get some food.
Oh, so for all that good food.
The chicken and rice are up. But yeah, no, thank you for joining.
No, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Giving out your amazing advice. So if anyone would like to contact you, obviously you are a coach. How can they get hold of you, Rosy?
So if they go to my Instagram, it's Rosy, it's ROSY and then _bikini. drop me a message. I mean, obviously I coach, but I'm happy to give out any free advice. If there's anything, like if people want to send me photos or anything that I can help with, then yeah, feel free. It will be free advice.
Awesome.
Yeah, just reach out.
I really appreciate it. Thanks for that, Rosy.
No, thank you for having me on.
All right, brilliant. That's
See you in a bikini soon.
I'm gonna get one on soon. I'm gonna get one tailored and just see how I look.
Awesome.
Well, now a big thank you to Rosy and a big thank you to the 3 guests that we have had on this podcast. They've had huge value to this, and again, it makes this podcast a little bit more real for you if you're wanting to be a bikini competitor, where it's not just me giving my explanation from a male and a coach point of view, but also to get first-hand information from 3 experienced athletes to make it a lot more relatable for you. So a big thank you for them for jumping on this podcast, and I hope it's been beneficial for you. I hope having these opinions and a little bit of information, a little bit of background on the bikini class has helped you to make a further step towards your decision if you want to compete, has helped clarify a few things, has helped ease the emotions, and even if it doesn't help now, if everything has sort of been covered that you expected, can have a possible influence and support during your prep if you decide to take that step to reflect back on what the 3 athletes have said and understand that the emotions you're experiencing are relative to successful athletes and can be expected. So that's the end of this podcast for today, and I understand it's been a long one, but I want to thank you all for tuning in to the podcast, and hopefully you can take at least one piece of information away to support you on this. Now, if this has been useful for you and you know of any friends or feel this has been beneficial, then please feel free to share this podcast with anyone or on your social medias. I would be hugely thankful if you did. And I look forward to bringing you more episodes of the Yes to Fitness podcast in due course. So thanks for joining. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And if you do step on stage and this podcast has helped you, then please get in contact with me on my social media, whether that be my Yes to Fitness account or my personal account at Ashlee Whiteman. I'd be great to hear from you and for you to share your experiences with me and hopefully benefit even more people who are looking to step on stage in the future. So thanks again, and I shall catch up with you all soon.